Welcome back to Derry Public Radio. Reporting from the basement of the Derry Civic Center, this is CM Alexander with the news. Hold on to your loofahs, listeners, because the hottest new birthday trend is upon us. Bathtub surprise parties take the one room in any home that should guarantee you solitude and invites all your friends and family for cake. Celebrate another year in this world the way you came into it, naked and screaming, as your peaceful existence is shattered by the truth that others exist in this world as well. You're listening to Derry Public Radio. This is Derry Public Radio. Welcome back to Derry Public Radio, a bi-weekly Stephen King Book Club podcast. I'm one of your hosts, CM Alexander, alongside Joshua Kahn.
Hey, everybody.
And Eve Gatto.
Hey, constant readers.
And today we are back with Writing the Bullet. We are covering the movie, and Josh is leading our discussion.
Now, you know that it's a Mick Garris movie. It's getting its own episode.
Of
Let's
course.
just be honest.
Yeah. He winked at me. I owe it to him.
I feel like that is like the caveat I like to throw out anytime we do review something that we have talked to somebody on our show about it that we should mention. Yeah, we know this person. So there's a little bit of, what's the phrase I'm looking for?
Brag.
Well, no, being honest. Being honest, honesty bias.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just we have a warmer spot in our heart for Mick Garris because
we're friends.
Yeah, no, we're best friends.
Yeah, our best friend, Mick Garris.
Best friend.
Yeah.
Mick Garris said, if I get a horror movie in a theatrical release, I get invited to his Master of Horror dinner. I have it on audio.
Hell yeah.
True, he did say that.
So we are best friends. So,
which is all to say, Mick, if you're listening to this episode, you can turn it off now. We love you.
We'll get to the point where it happened, but we did have to stop the movie and have a conversation about the tone and everything with it, because it is listed as a horror drama, and the first third plays really fast and loose with the terms horror and drama.
Y'all, I got some good laughs.
Yeah.
Honestly, Mick, this is good. Like, I had a good time.
I was experiencing a black comedy for the first part of this.
The first chunk.
Well, here's the thing. Should we also mention that this is an unofficial high speech? should we mention that might have affected
little
listeners what Eve is referring to? If you're like, what are they talking about? Climbing the tower? What does that mean? Go to our Patreon.
Yeah.
And you can look for those words. Shameless plug. But yeah, that definitely gave me an experience. Several experiences, actually.
By the end of it, though, having that beginning and end, having the tone be so different kind of worked for me in a little bit of a way. Not in a way that I want to rewatch it right now, but in a way that I appreciate.
It took me a little bit to get on the movie's level.
Yeah.
That is definitely a thing. But once it kind of clicks into being a ghost story, finally, there's a lot of stuff that's pretty fun. You remember when that kid thrown off of that?
That was amazing.
Oh my God.
Watch this with your friends.
Yes.
Because you're going to have such a fun time.
Before we get into the movie proper, CMU asked us before watching if we wanted a bit of a disclaimer, because going into any adaptation, we are, I don't know if y'all know this, we're heavily critical of adaptations. And so CM posed us a question if we wanted to know a piece of information. We decided yes, and thank God we did, because it really did color what I needed from the experience.
That's not going to be an exact adaptation.
Right.
Yes. So obviously this is a very short story that would be perfect in, the Creepshow TV series or a Stephen King anthology movie. So to make it a full-length feature, we have this unique collaboration, one we've seen before and is always very charming, of Stephen King and Mick Garris. So they co-wrote the screenplay, and Mick Garris, as we've been going on and on about, directed. And, last episode when we were just covering the story, we talked about the message of it, this guilt and grief over sacrifices your parents made for you, but wanting to be able to live and experience your own life too. And also fear of your own mortality and you having that first experience with that when your parent becomes sick in a way that is not immediately life-threatening, but is definitely, we've turned a corner in our lives. It's a signal of, from here on out, there are going to be health things happening. Anyway, this also affected Mick Garris in an interesting way. It made him think a lot about experiences that he's had. And so he used some things from his past, and I don't know how close they are, just how much they were inspiration versus I experienced this, and gave that to this character. So there are a lot of things in this movie that are not different. They are totally new.
Yes.
And it changes things in an interesting way. So I did warn you guys of that, and also just let you know, hey, this is two pals collaborating on something. And we know Mick Garris has this funny horror kind of blending those two styles together, and his skill in bringing, the elements that he wants in the movie, bringing the people who are best going to give him what he wants. So just keeping in mind, this is gonna be fun. If you're looking for a dark movie, if you want to cry and be oh, that was a good movie, but it wasn't fun to watch, that's not this.
Yeah.
It is my biggest complaint about the movie and simultaneously my favorite part of the movie.
I see that.
Absolutely.
Because I love the change that they made. The biggest change, of course, is that the movie takes place in 1969 as opposed to 2001, which I think is a good change. It seems it fits so naturally for a story about a kid hitchhiking. It works. And the other one is that, CM, you said, the story is so much about the fear of death and aging a lot. Whereas this has an added theme running throughout about the character being suicidal.
Yeah.
Which is such an interesting wrinkle to add into it, that this kid isn't just, a kid dealing with his mother's possible death, but he's also wrapped up in not really wanting to be around himself. It's a really interesting angle that just does not gel with my favorite part, a guy dressed as the Grim Reaper popping out to a sweet-ass guitar riff and smoking a joint. That fucking rules. I cannot
amazing.
say this enough. More of that.
When we
But
discussed,
it's just it's at odds with the seriousness of
You have
suicide.
to embrace that,
Yeah.
and you'll enjoy this. Oh, you guys, I'm sorry. I took production notes. Do you want to
Oh, yeah, we
hear
should
about?
get into that.
Sorry. Now it's opening credits for our show.
Yeah.
Oh, I should have put the radio intro right here.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And now we can go into the the production.
Yeah. So this, we already said, Mick Garris, Stephen King. It stars Jonathan Jackson as Andrew, who people would probably most know from things like Boy Meets World, and the actually awesome Sarah Terminator.
Sarah Terminator?
Sarah Connor
Terminator, Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Oh, no.
And that was a TV show from 2008. And also the TV shows Nashville and General Hospital. And then, of course, we have, which we'll talk a lot about, Deputy Dewey himself, David Arquette. Obviously, we know him from Scream, Cougar Town, Never Been Kissed. And my personal favorite role, because he's acting and not being a goofball in this so much, which he's really good at being, the movie Ravenous with Guy Pearce.
Oh, yeah, that was a good movie.
See it if you haven't.
Thought you were going to say Eight-Legged Freaks.
What a charming movie.
Should have gotten an Emmy.
And of course,
An
we
Emmy?
have
Daytime Emmy.
Barbara Hershey. Do you guys recognize her name?
No.
Okay, so that lady. She's been in, you've seen her in a bunch of things. She has a really awesome long career, a lot of TV shows.
Is it the mom?
She's been in Gidget. Yeah, that's the mom, which was a 60s gem for older listeners. I don't know why I watched it when I was a teenager.
It was the 90s.
Yeah,
Nick
you did
at Night
weird
was
things
on.
in the 90s.
Yeah.
Beaches. If you want to hang out with your best bitches and cry over beaches, it's a really sad, heartwarming movie that I also used to watch as a teenager and think about if I ever had a best friend like that and cry.
Oh my God,
And
CM.
CM, we gotta hang out and watch
I
Beaches.
never did.
Oh, CM.
Stay tuned for our next Patreon show, Bitches and Beaches.
Also, Black Swan and the Insidious
Oh,
movies.
she was in Black Swan. Was she the mom and
I don't remember.
the
And Once Upon a Time, she was Cora Mills.
Oh my God,
Josh,
that
yeah,
show.
I love that show. It's a TV show, and she's
Our buddy Michael Coleman.
Yeah, great.
He's so amazing.
She's also in a movie that just came out last year. An excellent movie, by the way, Strange Darling. So good,
I've heard that was good.
really great.
From you.
Come on, man.
I haven't even heard of it.
Cutting that part out. Oh, I'll mention a few more people because this is a Mick Garris affair. We have our familiar faces, people that he likes to work with because they're part of his quartet. So we have the Trash Can Man himself, Matt Frewer, the lovely Cynthia Garris, who plays Andrew's future wife.
Annie Wilkes.
Annie Wilkes, yep. And Nicholas Pike, who did the score for this, and also Graveyard Shift, Sleepwalkers, the Shining miniseries.
There's some weird music
There
in
is.
this.
There
Fucking
is.
weird
There's
music.
a scene.
Masters of Horror, too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of other things you'd recognize and probably some more Mick Garris stuff that I missed. And makeup effects by Greg Nicotero. It was released in early 2005, so it had an estimated budget of $5 million and didn't do so well. It made a little over $250,000 worldwide, which is why the $500,000 music rights did not go through. We'll get to that, I'm sure, in the opening scene. All right.
There's also, it does something that I feel was a common, mistake in the early 2000s, late 90s, which is this character, the way he has a suicide attempt here later, but getting into the beginning, when we first meet him, he is in an art class taught by Matt Frewer, who is just such a creep, and it's amazing.
Oozing sexuality.
I was hoping
it's a
he
college
was-
art class.
Yes.
I was hoping he would have a bigger part.
Me too.
'Cause
Oh my God.
He's so horny.
Yes.
I'm
so
like,
great.
He talks to Andrew's girlfriend first and is like banging her. And then he talks to him and is like, and banging him.
Yeah. So getting back to the
weird.
mistake of the early 2000s is that the suicidal character also looking at death with romance. Like they intertwined those two things so hard in the early thousands.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys, what is, I don't know if this is too early to ask. What is this movie trying to tell us? Because yeah, he's in this art class and he's drawing this topless woman like it's a bitchin' airbrushed side of a van.
Yeah.
Like she's a zombie and there's a ghoul behind her. And his teacher's like, no, you gotta like life. And he's like, nah, I'd love Hot Topic. And it's like, okay, so obviously the point of the movie is like, you should not want to die, but it's said in such a like roundabout way, and when combined with the actual story is like, suicide is bad, you should kill your mom instead. I don't know. What did you guys think?
I think the message of the movie is that life is happening whether you're on board or not. So get on board and just ride.
Okay.
It's the because of all of the, we'll get to his representation of intrusive thoughts later, and all this, but so much of that I feel is, have you ever tried to control the outcome of something you can't control by trying to answer every scenario the way a situation can play out?
That's how every
This
second
room.
of my life happens.
That's what I think is being represented by the amount of smash cuts to intrusive thoughts, the people talking to him, the thing he sees. These are all things that are stopping him. What actually brought me to this is something you said, CM, while we were watching, which was a comment about how David Arquette is in the moment in every second of this. And the main character is a bad actor, but he also is never in the moment. His character never spends any time staying in a moment. He's always somewhere else, thinking about worst case scenario here, thinking about a memory here, imagining a small child being thrown from a roller coaster here.
Well, and that's when I said that, and we'll get to it, but there's like a version of himself, his consciousness or something, and his consciousness, that you know what I meant. And like, I wanted our guy to be as kind of flat as he is, but I wanted that version of himself to be acting, like to be very emotional, to be like blubbering when he's freaking out, and to be like more angry or sinister or threatening during those moments. That would have shown that it was a choice for him to keep this character flat, because, you know, when you're having suicidal ideation, perhaps life seems flat, and maybe that's how he perceives himself as flat. So I think maybe that's why they both acted the same. But we just needed a different style between those two for it to serve that actor better and the story better, I think.
Definitely agree.
I, however, think he was trying for a different style.
I agree.
So after this art class, he smokes a joint in the bathtub after his girlfriend dumps him for reasons that aren't important.
that barely make any sense.
I was confused. I was just as confused as he was about what was actually happening.
Yeah, because at no point do they seem like they have any chemistry whatsoever.
He has more chemistry with his mom, which which
1,000%.
upset me.
Yes.
And that's nobody's fault.
So he's in the bathtub smoking weed. As we said, the Grim Reaper kicks the door in, grabs a sweet guitar riff, smokes a joint, starts telling him, hey man, do it. Because he's pulled a razor blade out, and I was hoping he was going to shave his stupid face.
I can't stand razor scenes in movies.
Yeah, this scene made me so excited for the rest of the movie. I was like, this is what this movie's going to be like. I'm in.
Me too. I mistook this for because this feels like a 90s movie version of a 60s movie.
It gets so bonkers. He's staring at the razor and the door gets open, and it's an awesomely designed
a Bill and Ted style Grim Reaper. Like he might as well have the guitar that is wailing his entrance,
which is hysterical. It's such a good choice that it's just like in the background. It's so good. And he goes in and he grabs his joint, and the Grim Reaper's like, you should totally kill yourself. And his bathroom, which we failed to mention, is insane.
Sick.
It's
so
super cool. It has enormous naked ladies painted all over the walls. Yeah. And they come to life. Their eyes open.
Him.
The first one happened, and I was like, as I said, I had just taken a peek at it. I was like, did that eyes open?
His walls are super hot, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, they're banging walls for sure. But they all start screaming at him to do it, and so he puts the blade to his wrist, and then the door is for real kicked open by his now ex-girlfriend, who's leading the charge into his bathroom to yell surprise with a friend who has a camera
and a bunch of other people behind them. You would never start a surprise party in somebody's bathroom unless
unless there's a big ass hot tub.
Unless you knew him that well.
Yeah.
Think about how emo our dude is.
He's the Prince of Darkness.
He's so emotional.
You think this was like an intervention that they were trying to disguise as a surprise party?
I don't know, but pairing him slicing the razor across his arm and drawing blood with surprise felt like a Mick Garris tonal shift.
Really
sort of like, I'm going to shock you with something awful, and then I'm going to upset you by making it funny. And it's
Yup.
you have to be ready for that.
He almost immediately blacks out after.
Yeah.
And goes to heaven.
Yes.
Oh yeah. This where his girlfriend tells him what he clearly did this to hear, it makes it
Yeah.
seem like, which is like, but I love you so much.
I'm sorry I didn't treat you good enough.
Oh my
I see
God,
how
it's
how
so-
important you are.
It's so, if those are feelings you have, please talk to somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Nope.
That's not
Yeah.
healthy, man.
Don't do that. But also what you shouldn't do is whatever the fuck his girlfriend is doing. I was so
don't know if I
confused.
know.
Yes.
Do you know?
Because he's like, after they left class, he's like, I can't believe you're breaking up with me on my birthday.
Great
And she's
impression.
like, I'm not breaking up with you. I am, but I'm not. It's the 60s. And I'm like, I don't
Didn't
understand
she say
this.
it was a joke?
Yeah.
She wanted to surprise
No,
him.
later she
and
says
then
that.
Oh my God.
after he wakes up, she's like, I was tricking you.
I was trying to throw you off.
Yeah, for
in
your
front of his
party. And we're like, that's
friends.
insane.
Mhm.
And
It's
then
a horrible
it's
joke.
after he gets out of the hospital that he's like, so you weren't fucking with me. You really did break up with me. You just said that you didn't because I fucking was in the hospital,
okay.
right?
I don't want to say it's, and she says yes.
And
I
she's
don't
like,
want to say this is equally as bad, but it is also very bad that if the truth isn't that she thought that would be a funny way to really surprise him, like maybe she's just super bad at pranks.
Could be.
But the only other option that the movie is giving us is that she's the kind of gal who will dump you on your birthday, but then come into your house after she crushed your heart with your friends and give you a surprise party. What kind of like mind games is she playing with him? Like, I don't care about you, but here I am to make your special day special.
It's all so confusing that when later on he has one of his weird dissociative hallucinations where he opens a door and she's sitting there and she's like, I don't care anymore. Let's run away to Canada together. And I turned to you two. I was like, what's this chick's deal?
I also thought, and I want to know, Nick, was that the intent?
Oh my God.
Yeah, because she also gives him concert tickets.
In Toronto.
In
It's
Toronto.
like she didn't mean to break up with him on his birthday and just was like, oh my God, he's so sad, I can't.
Yeah.
And then
It's
did it.
all-
She thought about how long the drive to Toronto was and
Yeah.
thought, I can't.
Their entire relationship made no sense to me.
He gets back to his apartment, or the apartment that he shares with these two other friends that came to see him, that took a picture of him slitting his wrist in the bathtub and sold it to
so
the paper.
horrible.
Fucking
Yeah.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern over
You
here.
know,
Yeah.
he takes that very well, that
He
it's in the paper.
Takes it in stride.
Yeah, what the hell?
Yeah. And as he shows his buddies the tickets, says, you know what? Maybe the other Beatles will show up. This is going to be the greatest night. We only have 2 tickets. There's 3 of us. Let's just drive and we'll buy a ticket when we get there. This is the point at which I thought, is this 1,000% a whole cloth news story?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
also was like, oh, they're gonna all three. There's gonna be a
Right.
road trip.
I was buying
no.
into how far this was going to get. I had no
'Cause we're
idea.
spending so much time with them.
Mhm.
Yeah. And he gets a phone call, and the second the phone rang, which is all something I talked about in the last episode about how terrible must it be that after this experience, every time a
Mhm.
phone rings, you think your
Mhm.
mom's dead. And the phone rang, and I went, his mom's dead. But he goes to the phone, and then he answers the phone. And it is the fake out fantasy of his ex-girlfriend crying, saying run away together. Then he answers the phone, and it's, she's dead. And we cut to the funeral real fast, and it's very distressing. And then it cuts back again, and he answers the phone.
Should we talk? Right now, I
Now
think
is
is
a
a
good
good time to talk about what you said while we were watching the scrubsness
Yes.
of this,
Mhm.
where there are these constant like
I
literally
haven't
it
seen
looks like
Scrubs,
Scrubs.
so yeah.
Okay.
Describe
you haven't?
it.
Okay.
No,
It's-
I mean I've seen an episode here and there, but I don't.
Know what that?
I vaguely understand what you're
Mhm.
talking about
Sure.
from what we just watched, but explain it a little more fully for me and anyone else.
It's the exact same thing as in this movie, is where a scene will be happening and it will Family Guy away to a bit, and it is the main character. It's supposed to represent like the main character's fantasy
Mhm.
of whatever is happening in his head, inspired by, and usually they're very absurd and like kind of
Or like surreal.
surreal and silly, and it's like obviously this is not actually happening.
So
My-
you play with style enough that you know that this is that
Mhm.
part of the episode, not reality.
Exactly. And that's the problem with this, is that while there are a few cuts that get very silly, and those are my favorite ones, there are also a bunch of cuts that are not stylistically different enough from what is actually
They're
happening.
flashbacks and not the fantasy.
Exactly. That there's a scene coming up once he starts actually going to Lewiston where he sees something, and then there's a flashback, and we all three of us were like, we had to stop the movie and be like, which of these events is actually happening?
Yes.
I did get a little bit lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
It
that
gets better,
I
but
think-
like at that point, it was kind of like, I don't
wonder
know
if
what's going on.
If rewatching it, that would, like, since you know kind of
Yeah.
the outline of the story, I wonder if that would stand out as much.
Maybe.
I think that it might have been intentional, though, to leave them that jarring, because there were certain moments that I couldn't tell if we were in a fantasy or not.
And that's what he wanted
that's
for the audience to not be sure if this was going to turn horror at any
Right,
moment,
exactly.
or if it was
Like-
just a memory.
Anytime something, the problem with that is that, for instance, one of the best, in my opinion, of the fake out fantasies is the scene when he's alone on the road in the woods and is attacked by a dog.
Yeah.
God, Mick Garris.
We'll put a pin and get back to that scene when it comes up.
It's
But
so good.
the only times I didn't like it when it turned a daydream into the horror was when it takes it the step too far that gives our protagonist permanent damage, and that's the immediate point where you have to be like, all right, this is definitely a fantasy.
Yeah, there were just a couple where something had happened that was effective and
Mhm.
like got a reaction from me. Like I enjoyed a lot, and then there'd be another layer to it, and it was kind of like telling a different perspective of what just happened almost too.
Mhm.
So I felt a little. Sometimes it felt almost repetitious. I don't want to say that, but it
Mhm.
almost felt a little bit that way to me.
There were also certain parts that I'm like, that we pointed out that we're like, that was a cool sequence. If it were cut from the story, like if that whole scene weren't here, nothing would have been affected.
Yeah.
Maybe slightly different editing fit
Yeah.
for some of these would have. I don't know.
There was some different stylistic choices, but it's hard to fine tune it
Mhm.
that much without going over the top. But looking at it almost as, until he gets into the car and is riding with George.
That's when I expected to see things that weren't memories or
Yeah.
flashbacks.
But before that, those vignettes seem to be a lot of, they're not specifically urban legends, but they carry that, each one of those set pieces kind of carried a story you've heard before with it.
Mhm.
Like the way he comes up on a car accident and it makes him think of his dad. His whole life, he thought his dad died in a car accident. So he sees this car accident, and we get a shot of a gas can on the ground, because then we later find out that he was walking on the side of the road carrying a can of gas when he got hit. That's the story he was told.
I mean, that death sucks too. Like,
Yeah.
say if you're gonna lie to your kid about how his dad died, just say he died peacefully in his sleep.
Let's talk about our first hitchhike.
I don't know. Sorry to go back. If she had told him that his dad died peacefully in his sleep, then he wouldn't have been as prepared as he was to live in a world where everyone drives down the center lane.
That's
Literally
Yeah.
every single
Yes.
scene with a car, there is constant scenes of cars swerving around each other
Yes.
because they're in the middle of the fucking road. It's hilarious.
Speaking of cars, we should mention another cameo.
Mm.
A Plymouth Fury.
Yes.
Christine appears three times that I clocked.
Yeah.
Not including when she is the car.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The very
George
first
is
time is
driving.
when he leaves the hospital after the
Mhm.
suicide attempt,
Mhm.
which means, was that suicide attempt
I kept
successful? And the rest of
wondering
it's a
that.
Jacob's ladder. That we get into this car ride with a hippie who wants him to smoke a joint to prove he's not a narc.
This
We-
scene also made no sense
It,
to me.
it absolutely doesn't. But this is when I decided that the second version of our protagonist that appears every once in a while
Mhm.
is the representation of his intrusive thoughts.
He's a
Because
I
quip-
like
He's
that.
the quip
Yeah.
guy.
they're almost always unkind or unfavorable
Yeah.
They're
to a
what you really
situation.
think.
Yeah, it's that intrusive first
Yeah,
thought.
your unfiltered
Yeah. mhm.
real thought.
Exactly. And so I liked when it was used effectively that way. This is the first time it really worked for me. I know they had to do it earlier to set it up so it didn't come out of nowhere. The first time we see it, I think, is in the hospital after he wakes up. He sees
No, it's
him in the
outside
bed.
of the school. He walks through himself.
Right, and he,
He
says
says
happy
happy
birthday to
birthday to
himself. It's an only child thing. I don't know where to get into it. But yeah, this is where that finally kind of caught momentum for me.
Mm.
So they pass a joint, drive down the middle of the road, have to swerve around Christine, and then this van spins
I don't.
like
I feel
9
like
times.
maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like because it's a
A VW,
VW,
bus.
yeah, they're higher than they are.
Yeah.
I think it would have tipped over. I don't think they spin like that.
I like that after it crashes, you're like, oh, I guess wig's coming off. And then the very next line is that a wig?
Yeah, then it's like, oh, I'm the asshole. Thank you.
No, I love that. Yeah, you find out that this guy was wearing a wig and he reaches down and he has an army jacket.
I think he's a deserter. I think that's
he?
yeah. I think that's what it is. I think he kept saying like the draft couldn't take him, blah 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 blah, and I think he meant that he ran.
And our guy who
Okay.
doesn't believe in the war also thinks deserters are bad.
Yeah, see, that's the other
That's the
thing.
part I
Well,
wasn't. I was
Because
confused
it's like,
about.
I'm like you. And the guy's like, I'm not like you shitty hippie. And it's like, what?
You
No,
we've
deserter-
only seen
you-
you stoned for the first part of
Yeah.
this movie, you shitty hippie.
Going AWOL is extremely frowned upon. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, I could see where
What,
in
by anybody?
in the 70s that being as bad as being a
Huh.
deserter being as bad as a soldier, I guess. I don't know. I don't understand.
It was
politics.
a weird aside that
Yeah.
didn't seem to have anything to
I'm
do
sorry,
with anything.
I'm defensive of soldiers because a lot of them start off as children.
Yeah, no,
And,
sure.
You know,
It's just, it didn't make
We
a
all
lot
start off as children.
of. God damn it.
Sam.
only soldiers.
I've been activated. That was my phrase.
I was never a
He's a
baby.
sleeper agent.
I was born a warrior. I stole that from Metalocalypse. We can't use that.
We get a great daydream of a crow being hit by an ambulance.
A talking,
A talking crow. So I'm just going to, because nothing happens that
Oh,
matters.
that's the stand reference.
Yes,
Sorry.
that's a great stand reference. I'm going to go through my
Mhm.
next few notes and remind you of what happened in this section of the movie. Crow being hit by an ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
Whoopsie, I found a crime scene. My dad's ghost. Bus full of kids. Crank
Oh,
hog
yeah,
man.
the bus full of kids.
The bus full of kids.
That
I
was weird.
don't- Yeah, because it looked like a bus from hell. So it made me wonder if it was part of his hallucination or daydream or whatever he's having.
It looked like a charter bus.
That's the shit.
Yeah, but it wasn't normal.
That's the shit I wanted more of.
Yeah.
I want the stuff that makes me go, what the fuck?
Yeah.
That's my favorite shit.
To the credit of the bus scene, the fact that going from that to the roller coaster, I thought was a great touch.
Hmm.
Let's talk about the Crank Hog Man. Favorite of the short story.
He made me feel physically nauseous.
I'm so glad it captured the vibe of trying to catch something.
I was like, of all the scenes to adapt 100%
Just
accurately.
fucking nail.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
You jerks.
This scene goes down in my top 5 true adaptations.
Honestly, it works.
It really does.
And it ends up being kind of sincerely creepy
Yes.
for me.
Yeah. Well, okay. The thing that fucked me up real bad is I swear there was a scene, a flash of the hand he was cranking with,
Mhm.
where there was something on it.
Oh, I hope not.
Almost like-
I would have hated that if I
Like,
had noticed
it looked
that.
like almost like moss or decay or something. So I
Oh,
was like, is he a ghost? But yeah, he gets really intense at the end.
it's sad. Like, he gets real sad, but then when he gets out of the car
The car
and he
that
just
nearly crashed.
and he just goes dead. Like, he's like, I miss my wife. And then the main character gets out and the driver's just in the foreground, completely expressionless, does not
like
react.
The off switch had been. Yeah.
It's super eerie. And then he shows the guy getting out of the car and he's just parked across 4 parking spots. And that's great too.
That's what I was laughing at when it showed him rolling to a stop, because I could see where the parking lot lines were, and he was going across it all. It's fucking great. Yeah, he uses a lamppost to come to a full stop.
He was right to get out of this car.
Yes, because he also had to pull it back from being in a car accident like 3 times while they were
Yeah.
driving.
Well, yeah, and the guy grabs his arm and like seemed like he wasn't gonna let him go.
Yeah. And again, but that
Was that real?
I think that was a hallucination. So, well, okay.
That
Here
is
we
one
go.
of the scenes where that worked really
Yes.
well for me, where it's like, okay, that was eerie and you don't know what the deal was with
Yeah.
that. How much of that, when he gets out and looks across the street and sees the guy's wife in the car, I'm like, that's pushing it a little, but it still works.
So
for me.
we wanted a little more subtlety in the idea that our protagonist, a person whose eyes we're looking through,
Mhm.
their perception can't quite be trusted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
God, okay, interesting.
It was also, I thought, a really masterful way to do something which I thought would be incredibly difficult, which is in the story, during this scene, the old man gets very scary, and then when he gets out, he has that moment of he's just a sad old man. I think that's why they show him with his wife, to give him that's what's supposed to send us it's just a sad old man. But they do a really good job of making him feel effectively horrifying for a second. Small note on the intrusive thought character. As they're walking through the night, it's cold out. You can see their breath. I wish he didn't have breath.
Oh,
That
I
was
just-
cool.
I didn't
yeah.
think about that.
Small detail.
Yeah.
It also would have let me know which one was which.
Sometimes I feel like they were almost color graded differently, or maybe there's like a light on one of them that
Maybe.
like maybe in post, you can kind of
Yeah.
brighten up something to make, because sometimes I felt like I could distinguish between how they looked.
Yeah. Let's go into, of all the rides he passes up, these two seemed like a fun bunch.
Yeah. This is, I wish we run a risk
Mhm.
watching something and then instantly talking about it, because
True.
we don't get to sit with it. We don't get to digest it,
Mhm.
think deeply about it. This is our raw reaction to everything.
Mhm.
I'm still not sure about this scene, because this starts with we start to hear spooky sounds, or is that after?
That's after.
Okay, so this scene starts with, a truck drives by and these guys throw a bottle out the window at him and call him a word.
F*** it.
Oh,
I can say it.
and tell him to get a job. And he says, fuck you. Like, understand, because that's how I felt.
No.
But you can't say that on a back road with a truck like that.
This scene made me think of if Big Driver was scary and not just gross.
Oh, Mick Garris should have done Big Driver.
Oh,
It would have been too funny.
Yeah.
It would have been way too funny.
But just that you're in the backwoods, you're alone, it's scary, and then just some random people decide to do violence at you.
It's like, I couldn't tell if he was having the worst day ever,
Mhm.
or if this was another hallucination. of the worst thing happening
Yeah.
because so he says, fuck you. The truck immediately comes to a stop. Reverse chases him through this open field and then, finally flips around and is trying to run him over before ultimately taking the gun out and trying to kill him and chasing him into a junkyard where he climbs into a refrigerator that gets some bullet action in it.
Yeah, it's really intense.
They tried to murder him. He needs to go to the police and give them a description of the truck.
And the fact that the entire movie up to this point, we know that our main character has crazy stress hallucinations of things that he's worried is going to happen.
And this could be a reflection of the times, of the danger of hitchhiking. And
yeah, exactly. But then they drive away and the scene ends and then he's just back on the road. And you're like, it wasn't even an excuse for him to get lost or like get off of his path. It was just like, oh, this awful hate crime happened. And then he's like, still got to walk.
Back to Route 17.
Yeah, which is why I started to wonder, like, is this about just not only, it's life is precious because here he is ready to end his, and now he's faced with his mom's ending before he's ready for that to happen. And as he's trying to get to her to embrace life, he's faced with all of these life-threatening scenarios, some real, some imagined. So it started to
I
make
actually
me
really like that.
feel like there was this like theme coming through there.
I think you found it.
I actually really love that because
Yeah.
that makes it so, because like if the point of the story is actually like, oh, you're a little sensitive, sad art boy. And like the whole time he's like, when he cut himself, he won't say, he keeps saying it was an accident. I don't want to talk about it.
Or he'll
he
deflect.
won't. Yeah.
Completely.
And so like this being like okay, he's discovering that he actually wants to live by being put in actual, like in the face of actual death and danger.
He's confronting that
feeling.
feeling.
That's interesting. I like that.
Now is my favorite scene, as I alluded to earlier. It's nighttime. There are sounds of barking, howling.
This is spooky.
He's a lone man on the street. Yes, effectively.
It
It's
is
very
spooky.
scary.
This is spookier than those assholes in the truck. It's like, more of just this terrifying being in the woods alone at night.
And then there's rustling right on the edge of the road. And out pops a little bunny. And we're like, ha! Mick Garris.
This is so him, like
It really is.
to make you go, what? So that you completely
You
drop your
drop,
guard. And then what happens?
And then a dog pops out of nowhere, full speed, grabs that rabbit and rips
And an
it to
actual
shreds.
vicious dog, not a good boy. Because sometimes it's like, that dog's happy. This dog killed a rabbit and then attacked this guy.
Speed and ferocity that this dog whips this rabbit around is insane.
It was brutal.
But then it turns into the dog attacking him
and tears his throat
out, bites his hands. Then it cuts back to a semi hitting the dog.
So the dog was really happening, but then he imagined worst case scenario dog happening.
Yeah. And thankfully a semi came by that he could have gotten a ride with.
The structure of this confuses me. And I'm sorry, Mick. I just have to say, I listen to this, but I just have to say that. But also watching the dog you see the dog
annihilated,
brutalized.
It explodes into mist.
It rules.
And it doesn't look like cheap or fake. It's a good effect. It's such a good effect that
It looks like you watch a dog explode.
Yeah.
It's the Stephen King dog death in the book. It's just as brutal as it feels to read about.
It sucks.
But those things happen so fast. I want to watch it again. After this, we get to see the Bullet story play out in full length. We get a glimpse of it earlier in
we didn't mention
intro.
this.
In the intro, it's done in the style of home movies, which
loved
is great.
this. It looked really cool. It always has charm opening a movie this way. And then Josh completely ruined it for me by saying, who's filming these scenes? But then Mick Garris was like, like later when he was like, CM, you idiot, it's a
Mhm.
wig. He was like,
Mhm.
Josh, you idiot, it's a memory. It's just the style is a whole movie, which I think is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Although he's watching himself and his mom rather than it being from his
No,
first person view.
I'm telling you, when you see it in line behind them as a guy with a camcorder,
Hmm.
that's like his uncle or something. I don't know. Did that change the effectiveness for you of Eve? Especially, you had a lot of. We talked a lot about parents
Mhm.
last episode, as far as how out of line the mom was in that scene. Did seeing it play out still give you that same?
Oh, yeah.
More or less.
No, it's still like you were definitely meant to be like, yeah, that was a shitty,
Mhm.
that's a shitty thing to do to your kid.
What I think parents don't realize is like when you hit your kid, it's not
It's bad.
as much like, ow, that hurt. It's
Mhm.
kind of like, I see you differently now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's
so, yeah,
that we lost something.
The entire time that you've said, oh, I am your parent and I would never hurt you. Oh, that was a lie. Okay, cool. But no, it was effective, not as effective as him having an active imagination of being thrown off a roller coaster into his own mouth by rock and roll Grim Reaper.
That was amazing.
Him
I could have done with more Grim Reaper.
absolutely should have been the main character. Yeah, there's just this awesome scene of this kid on the roller coaster with his mom and the car behind him. The Grim Reaper just crawls up middle of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sick guitar riff still comes out.
Sick metal guitar riff. It's awesome. That is my favorite scene in the movie. I wanted more of that times a million.
It's enough to tell him like, no, mom, we gotta go. And that, Josh, to your question, because you've answered it, and I'm going to interject too.
Mhm.
It did feel very 90s mom to me. It didn't feel 60s mom,
Mhm.
but it felt like, I feel like I've seen a lot of moms give their sons that one slap upside the head,
Mhm.
walking on
Yep.
kind of thing. Like, and nobody around, nobody notices.
Bats
They
an
don't
eye,
bat
yeah.
an eye. Yeah. But other than that, the mom's motherliness, I think, comes through like in the
Mhm.
other
Yeah.
scenes.
I will say the mom, it does a really great job of being the greatest mom ever in the good memories,
Mhm.
and that's tough mom in the bad
Mhm.
memories.
I
It's
agree
a
with that.
really
Very
strong,
bittersweet.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, which is realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we come to a cemetery where Alan is just poking around and sees a headstone for George Staub and falls and hits his head. Little
And
whoopsie.
fucking dies.
Yeah. The angle he hits his head, like,
And the
is-
sound effect. They really thunked that skull.
yeah, they did.
I don't mind over the top violence
Yeah.
or injury though.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But then everything's fine because he's able to get up, and luckily Christina's pulling up outside, and he can get a ride. And I believe I can speak for all of us. This is when the movie really takes the fuck off.
Oh, 1,000%.
I have never seen David Arquette look so threateningly sexy.
Right?
So the only thing I remembered about this movie, because I think I
see
remember, my memory is that this movie was a made-for-TV movie, which is obviously not true. But for some reason, I remember my dad like taping this movie off of television, which I don't know how that's possible, because there's boobs and F-bombs, a ton of F-bombs.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know what my memory is, but all I remember is that fucking David Arquette was in it. And I don't have the fondness for David Arquette that Josh apparently has.
I do. It's the
I'm-
same kind of James Franco blindness that I have sometimes.
Oh, well, that's just wrong.
It just sometimes.
It's David Arquette I just have zero opinion about.
Sure.
Like, it just,
Mhm.
yes, David Arquette exists.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're totally right, CM. I had to stop and ask you guys, am I imagining things, Or is David Arquette kind of giving low rent Ryan Gosling in Drive?
Mm-hmm.
That was
It
a
was
magical
fucking working
phrase
for me.
It was
I
great.
guess we now know that David Arquette can nail Goofy, like in a sincere and kind of charming way, and can nail
Donald?
creepy Susie.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to take all of that
no,
back.
you're not, because it's in the episode.
No.
You have to live with your
We
choices.
all know
Oh, no.
Goofy doesn't bang. He fucks.
Oh, my God.
Jesus.
This is actually... We talked about ducks while we were watching this
did.
movie.
We did. Our main character
That's
is
true.
a duck.
But the
Why
main-
was our main character a duck?
I,
It was-
Oh, right. It was the truck chase scene that he hides behind a bush and they fire a shotgun in the air and he runs off.
jumps up like...
Yeah,
Oh,
fucking
he's a
good job,
duck.
Duck Hunt. That dog's gonna smile at your ass. What the fuck were we talking about?
We're talking about how
David
sexy David
Arquette.
Arquette is.
Yeah.
And I love
Yeah.
that the progress to his ghoulification becomes more and more
Mhm.
severe as the car
Mhm.
ride goes. And they nail that lighting, the way that the red on the dashboard like just
Yeah.
hits under his
Mhm.
eyes.
The scenes
like-
that are dark and are lit, like the bathroom scene at the
Mhm.
beginning, are cool. Like I kind of wanted everything to be at night.
Yeah. So they're in the car and they have the same conversation from the book. Gives him a fake name because the intrusive thought is saying like,
Mhm.
don't tell him what we're really doing here.
This is where I feel like maybe the idea for how they were going to do the intrusive thought was born,
Mhm.
because I feel like they really wanted this internal
Mhm.
dialogue
Yeah.
to become clear to the audience, like without
Mhm.
having to, like, how do you show that
Yeah.
in that setting?
Mhm.
So maybe this was like a way they found to do that. That's kind of the vibe I got.
Yeah. And the fact that it pays off at the end of this scene is so fucking great.
If it didn't, I
Yeah.
wouldn't like it.
Same.
It is
It made me
one-
retroactively like it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One thing happens that makes me go, oh, that was cool.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
actually, this whole thing that has not been working the whole movie just got saved by one weird little interaction.
And it was fucking cool.
Yeah, it's good.
Can I tell you the moment that David Arquette won me over in this role is almost at the very beginning. It's after he
Is it when his brain comes out?
no.
Okay.
It's when he introduces himself as Hector and he just gives the smallest reaction before saying Hector. Like it's so good
Doing
and I was
so
like, yeah.
much with his face and body this whole scene. Like
Mhm.
he's never not, like that's why I was saying he's never not present in every single second, because he's always, even when he's not talking, he's just like, I see why they cut to him so much.
Mhm.
They could have just done a one shot with him sort of as the primary focus
Mhm.
and left it there, and I would have been like, yeah, just keep it on, David.
We get to see the $750 caddy story.
I liked that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool too. For some reasons, seeing it visually rather than reading it was more effective to me this time.
I
Just
like seeing the dead body.
it. It hit home, like, oh, because the guy pulls up in his driveway, and it's like late at night, I think,
No,
right?
it's afternoon. He's washing it
No,
in the
the-
daytime.
Yeah.
In the caddy
Wow.
story.
When the guy finds his wife.
No, the beginning of the caddy story is the guy
Oh,
washing
no.
his
Sorry,
car.
yeah.
He's coming home from a business trip.
Mhm.
When he
And
finds his
sorry,
wife.
I'm jumping forward to the guy,
The
in
guy
the
finding his
story's
wife.
flashback in the
Yeah.
story. Yeah, when he finds his wife, it's just, the idea of coming home late at night and this accident has done this is like, ugh,
Yeah.
And
it hit me.
Yeah. And it says it's like weeks.
Yeah,
So-
and her corpse we get a good shot of.
Yeah, it's very cool. And we get the smoking a cigarette and smoke coming out of his neck.
Mhm.
Great. And then he finally brings up the bullet and he asks Al if he has ever ridden the bullet. And Al says yes. Nope. And we get, again, same interaction from the story. However, this time, after George lays it all out, that,
Mhm.
the pretense has dropped, then George starts telling about his time at Thrill Village. And we cut to another movie inside this movie.
Why does this
Okay.
happen?
Okay.
Why does this happen?
This is the other part about the framing device
Yeah.
for these parts that threw me off. There's just 3 of them that I was like, I don't know.
Mhm.
I love like just taking it by itself as a unique way to cut to a fantasy or something. I love the style they did this in. I thought it fit with a lot of the other tone in the movie. And I would have gladly, like, this was a point where it's like, oh, he should have been a film major. And so everything that he imagines has like different style
Sure.
film qualities to him.
That would have
Yeah.
made a lot of sense.
Yeah, this happening throughout would have made more sense. This was just one movie, but it was a rad movie. It was a lot of fun. David Arquette was having a ton of fun in it.
For sure. And it ends in a car crash. My second favorite kind of accident after potato, pumpkin.
Nice.
It was a good old pumpkin accident. Because then there's Gord's and his gourd in the back seat.
Aw.
The David Arquette's head obviously sticking out of the backseat of a car with fake blood all over.
I love
Perfect.
Very
it.
funny.
Perfect.
Oh
Yeah.
god! As
And
soon
then
as he opened his eyes, I was like, "Hell yeah!"
And then he like gets a cheesy
Yeah, he does like a
one-liner.
weird speech. It's great.
Yeah, he hams it up.
And then it cuts back to the car, and we get another very interesting piece. It is George talking about the atmosphere, the world, everything being just right so he could be here. But in this version, there's more to why Alan is who gets picked up. And it's because he is one of the walking dead.
And he grabs his wrist where he has the stitches from the razor blade.
What did you both think of that being brought into their connection?
It did make me wonder about, okay, what are the rules of this now? Because in the short story, of course, that's not relevant. That's just a mystery that we're left with to kind of explore in our own imagination. But, for an adaptation, obviously, they can explore that. And so I was trying to think, like, is this sort of like Beetlejuice rules where you allocated a
see.
position based on how you died?
I don't know.
Because David Arquette died in a car accident.
Yeah.
Like, what did he do that he's like fulfilling this role?
See, I don't think this works. Because part of the book that I like is that this dude has become a psychopomp for whatever reason. And like when Alan asks, like, where are we going? Take us where? There's that he doesn't answer and he thinks it's because he doesn't know. He's this otherworldly force, but it's not a literal, like, he wasn't given a job to do. It's just whatever weird spiritual ley lines all of this main character has been going through has just brought this event to come.
Alan
And
doesn't get the comfort of knowing what's after death.
Yeah. And in this,
Then
like,
death wouldn't be scary.
yeah, and David Arquette it is written as though he's a Grim Reaper, and this is like, he is a purposefully malevolent spirit. This is what he does. Because he's like, I'll bring both of you with me. Alan's like, why? And he's like, I'll get more points. And you're like, what?
It makes it feel like a judgment. Like, this is
Yeah.
what you get for trying to do that thing.
Exactly.
Like punishment.
Which I don't care for. I don't like it.
We also find out it's revealed through George that Alan's dad committed suicide. He didn't die from being hit by a car. He shot himself in the head.
They show it.
They show it.
All of it.
Which, the way this movie had gone, I was not surprised that they showed it. I was surprised they showed it a second time, less than 2 minutes later.
Wasn't quite as effective again.
I do, but this scene did really make me like adding that when we first meet him, the jokingly referring to himself as the Prince of Darkness, the love of the macabre, and seeing all that kind of come to roost here in this moment.
Seeing there's this heritable thread with this thing.
And because George even says something about the number of kids whose parents commit suicide being higher, which is also strange because it wouldn't, if he didn't know, I would think.
Well,
Or is they just saying
I mean,
the genetic depression?
Mhm.
yeah,
is
the
more
reasons
I
why.
see.
Yeah.
I had a misconnect there. They begin to, this conversation gets heated, and Al wants answers that he's not getting. And they stop the car. They stop the car to have a conversation, despite the fact that before they stop the car, we've had the conversation that you have until we hit these lights to make this call. Nowhere in the rules did he say he could just pull over.
Mhm.
No, and he's also been driving like he doesn't need to look at the road because he's been talking to him a lot.
Yeah.
So he could have
Mhm.
still had this intense,
Yeah.
which is, I was like, okay, why are they stopping? But then it
Because-
gets even more.
It's because we need an action sequence.
We have to go to the
Thrill
theme park,
Village.
Thrill
Mhm.
Village.
But we get to rip David Arquette's hand off first.
Okay,
Oh,
that's
that was
rad.
rad, yeah.
Yeah. Good effect.
a
Gross.
degloving effect that truly sucks to look at.
You know, I'm glad we got another degloving in a Stephen King thing. Thank you,
Gross.
Nick.
But he gets out of the car and tries to run away and happens to run to Thrill Village, where they do the classic hide in an amusement park from the Scooby-Doo villain.
Mhm.
They did a
Which
great
is fun.
that I really appreciated that they made one room of mirrors feel like an entire maze of mirrors.
Mhm.
I thought that was very clever the way they shot around that. And as CM, you mentioned the only way you ride roller coasters, he trips and falls into the bullet.
And then it starts.
And then it starts.
Yeah, that's a ghost has always chased me onto a roller coaster. That's why I've ridden them several times.
Oh my god. And afterwards, George catches him and
Oh,
pretends
you don't want
to
to talk
be
about his ride on the bullet? He rides the bullet.
He does. And actually, I want you to mention the note that you had that would have made it even better.
Okay, so what I wanted, because we're getting more flashbacks in this scene where he's actually on the bullet.
And there's other ghosts that are on the bullet with him. His dad's
Mhm.
there, his mom's there.
Yeah.
His fucking
His
friends are
friends.
dead for some reason.
Yeah, that actually was funny.
Really wish John Lennon had popped up in one more behind.
So they're, screaming like the normal sounds of a roller coaster. I wanted all of the screams to be screams of horror.
Mhm.
I thought that would have been upsetting.
And that's what made me realize this was first the most extreme reaction we've seen from our main character the entire
Yeah.
movie, and how it's the wrong one. I wish he was crying. I wanted that switch from what's expected. I didn't want him to be having any emotion you would normally associate. I wanted him to be sobbing at the idea his mom is dead right now.
Mm.
I wanted that heartbreak to be happening where he is entirely inside him on this massive roller coaster. Like the
Yeah.
thing that's been built up and he's not even really on it when he's on it. That's what I wanted.
That's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, because that would have represented riding the bullet.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are then brought back to the car, then tossed back out of the car once we get to the hospital. When he finally makes the choice. I was so scared about this scene because anybody who acts knows that there are certain moments of your character that are the peak emotional state.
Mhm.
They are the most extreme place you can bring your character. And the moment, I was waiting for the moment where he says, take her, choose her. To me, it needed to break my heart.
Mhm.
The pain that he has to force the words out. And it is the most sub-acted part
Mhm.
of an already sub-acted role.
Yeah, I also wanted him blubbering here.
Yeah, I wanted a mess, but no, he's like, no, take her. And like he's waking up from a bad dream,
Mhm.
which I guess maybe could be part of kind of a point.
Yeah.
The it's all a dream aesthetic. I don't know. It was such a letdown in this big moment that I really wanted.
Also, it made me realize it was cool that they went to Thrill Village, and I liked the scenes were fun, but the idea of the car being able to stop and you get out, like I wanted because the car is supposed to represent riding the bullet in the
Mhm.
story, right?
Yeah.
The car's the roller coaster. And that kind of changes that. But I mean, whatever.
We finally get to the hospital and the fake outs
Oh my God, they're never ending.
Oh, but we get a cameo.
Yes.
Although I kept putting Stephen King in a bunch of different. Anytime somebody was super goofy, I was like, "Oh, King should have done that."
Yeah. Yeah, we have one of his fake outs, Mick Garris is the doctor,
Yeah, that was
and then he's
cool.
not. But yeah, this part works so well in the book. I love this part in the book where he's just the constant like certainty. Oh, wait, hold on. No, I was wrong. But this time for real. I love that. And then they do every single one. They show you you watch.
It doesn't play as well visually as it does.
You said like we have to see everything twice. We see him
this
walk
is where
into,
that became.
You see him walk into the same room and have the start of the same conversation over and over.
This reminds me,
Interminable.
though, that we skipped over a really cool part is before he actually gets to the hospital, before he makes a choice where he hallucinates or visions himself at the hospital. And there's two scenes actually. The first one, his mom turns because he's drawing, waiting for a car to come, and he hasn't drawn her facial features yet.
Oh, I
and she
forgot about
turns
that.
in bed, and she has no face. Fucking awesome!
was
Best moment.
Always one of my favorite special effects in anything. If someone doesn't have a face or
So
certain facial
upsetting.
features, always scary.
Yeah. And then the next one was so over the top, silly, but also upsetting. She starts cawing at him when he walks into the room.
My thing with that is the face she's making, though, because she's making this crazy sound, but she's making this huge smile.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird.
It is weird.
Weird. I like it.
He visits his mom. Everything's fine. He goes home, and we get one very cool shot. I'm not sure why. I mean, it symbolizes that being home makes him feel like a kid again, sure. But there's a pan around the entire house, and you watch it morph from the house it is now to the house it was when he was a kid. And then he turns into a kid, which also, I've given this movie a lot of shit for casting. Tremendous job casting a child with as much charisma as the lead.
He
They
looked
had
like
an
him too.
equal
A little bit.
performing style. Yeah, they went to the same school.
Oh.
I'm
No, I mean, you're right. They did.
ragging on this guy so hard. And then we conclude with some ending narration by a completely different voice that we've not heard up until now.
That was far too emotional for our character.
Yes.
So we're seeing scenes of him spending his mom's last few years with her, which I thought in the book it was like 9 or 10 more years or something. I
It
thought
seemed
it was
like
several,
at least
several.
a decade.
Yeah, in this, it looks like a week later.
Yeah.
But they're doing a good job showing the passage of time, but it also, since he stayed so young, I don't know.
He didn't change his physical appearance in any way.
Here's what bothers me. It was shot like the end of a movie where the two people finally get together and you're seeing them like grow old together.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like mother-son to me. And also maybe just the two actors had too much, like other good chemistry too. For me, it felt, I don't know, just.
You could tell they were fucking on set.
No. And
Anyways, the movie over.
It happened in Sleepwalkers. It's going to happen here. I just also thought it was weird that she dies while he's painting the car.
Oh, the car from Road Virus Heads North.
No. I couldn't I couldn't tell. There were faces in the smoke, and one of them was David Arquette's, and I think his mom, and I think there were more faces. I couldn't clock. I didn't know if either of you saw that.
That's cool, though.
So his mom dies, and then, you know what? Fake outs still aren't done. We have a little funeral fake out. Then we...
Oh, yeah, David Arquette is in the casket.
Yeah, and pulls him in. And then we get an epilogue that is him and his bitch girlfriend got back together, and they got married, and shocking no one, they got divorced. That's also something, it circles back on the phrase, nothing seems to last, which I understand that it's, nothing's permanent is the message there. But just throwing his marriage away, and that seems a little arbitrary. And he's like, I never became an artist. I just paint for fun. And on weekends, I go ride the roller coaster alone. I'm happy.
Well, and what he's painting for fun is his dead mom.
Yes.
And
Yep.
again, it looked like two lovers because the actor in this scene is her age.
No, we can all agree the moral of the story
Okay. I don't know.
is this character's a bummer.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I was not sure. You've done this to us before.
But that does bring us to the end of the movie, and it brings us to CM's rating.
Oh, man. Okay. This is a tough one because there were a couple things that just didn't work for me, which I already mentioned. But then there were those moments that were so freaking fun and cool and rad. Because I would recommend people watch this, because you will have fun. Like I had fun watching it with you guys.
Right,
and I
yeah.
had fun kind of exclaiming at the things it did that surprised me or confused me. So I think it's definitely worth a watch, definitely worth just sitting back and enjoying. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
Eve?
I will agree that I had fun watching it. I, however, do put most of that on hanging out with you two, as always. Yeah, watch it with friends. If you watch this with friends, it has enough crazy visuals and hot David Arquette-ness that you'll have a good time. If I had my druthers, I would probably give it a 2.5 out of 5. But I know that this was like 5 years ago. I tried to give something a 0.5 and I got yelled at. And I'll never
always get yelled at.
drop it. So I'll round up 3 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
I have a difficult time rating this because of the way I connected to the short story so much. And this isn't that.
Right.
We have had the conversation about being pretty hard on adaptations because we come into them so fresh from the story. It's sometimes very hard not to be critical. And I don't know that I will be super inspired to watch this again anytime soon. So I'm going to go 3 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
And that is it for this episode of Derry Public Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Join us for our next episode where we will be covering American Vampire Book 1. For Joshua Kahn and Eve Gatto, I'm CM Alexander reminding you, it's Alan and Jean Parker against the world. Hey everyone, CM Alexander here. Thank you for listening to Riding the Bullet Part 2. We hope you enjoyed it. Let us know your thoughts on Facebook or Instagram at Derry Public Radio or X at Derry Public. You can also send us an email at derrypublicradio@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. You can also chat with us and other horror and King fans on our Discord. The link for that is in the show notes. As always, don't forget to check out our Etsy store for merchandise, etsy.com/derrypublicradio, and our Patreon for bonus episodes and other perks, patreon.com/derrypublicradio. That's all for now, listeners. Goodbye.